In this video, we'll be taking a look at 3 college football games happening on October 14, 2023 and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games. So 2 picks for each game, 6 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 3 college football games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Miami, Florida versus North Carolina. The Miami Hurricanes travel to North Carolina on Saturday night to take on the 12th-ranked North Carolina Tar Heels in Atlantic Coast Conference action. The Hurricanes fell from the ranks of the unbeaten last week in devastating fashion against Georgia Tech. The Tar Heels improved to 5-0 with a decisive win over Syracuse. The Miami Hurricanes look for their second road win to improve to 5-1 on the year. Miami has won 4 of its last 5 road games. Tyler Van Dyke is completing 72.6% of his passes for 1,330 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Xavier Restrepo and Jacoby George have combined for 815 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns, while Colby Young has 21 receptions. The Miami Hurricanes' ground game is averaging 211 yards per contest, and Henry Parrish Jr. leads the way with 379 yards and 4 touchdowns. Defensively, Miami is allowing 15 points and 268.4 yards per game. Francisco Magoa leads the Miami Hurricanes with 22 tackles. Thomas Gore has 2 sacks, and Tekari Couch has 3 interceptions. The North Carolina Tar Heels look for their 4th home win to remain undefeated on the season. North Carolina looks for its first 6-0 start since the 1997 season. Drake May is completing 72.1% of his passes for 1,629 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Nate McCollum and J.J. Jones have combined for 673 receiving yards and 1 touchdown, while Cole Pacer has 22 receptions. The North Carolina Tar Heels' ground game is averaging 174.2 yards per contest, and Amarian Hampton leads the way with 461 yards and 7 touchdowns. Defensively, North Carolina is allowing 19 points and 334.8 yards per game. Cedric Gray leads the North Carolina Tar Heels with 42 tackles. Kyman Rucker has 4 sacks, and Elijah Huzzy has 3 interceptions. Alright, let's get this out of the way right out of the gates. Miami at North Carolina was supposed to be one of the most meaningful Atlantic Coast Conference games of the season, as 2 top teams are trying to dethrone the traditional powers of Clemson and Florida State. But Miami ruined that last week when we learned that they cannot coach their way out of a paper bag. I'm sure you are done hearing about it by this point, as their end-game management was a blunder of epic proportions, failing to take a knee with 30 seconds left and the opponent out of timeouts. When they ran a play anyway, presumably to get their running back over the mystical 100-yard mark, they deserved to fumble, and they deserved to get scored on in 22 seconds to lose. No question. But let's also remember that Miami was a 20-point home favorite, and while the final kneel-down that wasn't took all the attention, there were a ton of blunders that led to the game being close in the first place. Miami was tons better than Georgia Tech, and they completely dominated the box score, but it didn't matter. Now, heading to North Carolina, I do not trust this Miami team for a second, and more than that, I do not trust this coaching staff to put their athletes in a position to succeed. I'm probably done with this Hurricane team now. Miami has a great defense with a ton of really fast athletes that are very disruptive to opponents. They rank number 1 in the country against the rush, and they are a top 50 team against the pass. Then again, they had a game against the Texas Aggies, and otherwise they are untested. North Carolina is an entirely different opponent for the Canes. The Tar Heels, meanwhile, have dominated every opponent on the schedule except Appalachian State. Drake May is a great quarterback in a year filled with great quarterbacks, and last week he threw for 442 yards and 3 scores against a Syracuse team that plays good defense. The Tar Heel defense is far from perfect, but this coaching staff is not going to let Tyler Van Dyke succeed. He threw 3 picks last week and looked ugly doing so, and some of them were, once again, coaching blunders, like calling slow developing pass plays deep in the red zone that end up calling for throws over the middle of the field into traffic. Gross. One thing that separates separates North Carolina this year from their teams of the recent past is their ability to play defense. Quarterback Mays is a future top draft pick in the NFL and will produce points for the Heels. This year, however, the defense has held up its end of the bargain, making Carolina a much more challenging team to play. They now get a crack at a Hurricanes team that will likely be reeling from an epic collapse at home against Georgia Tech last week. The Hurricanes' inability to execute a simple kneel-down dropped them from the ranks of the unbeaten and certainly changed the scope of this game a bit. In what should be a tightly contested game, the needle shifts to Miami's side thanks to the team's lack of penalties and the Hurricanes' mindset following a 5-turnover performance against Georgia Tech. Miami makes far too many mental mistakes, ranking 117th in penalties per game, in a game that features two teams that are otherwise close in most categories. The Heels have shined against the spread this year as well, covering in 4 of 5 opportunities this year with the only non-cover coming against App State. North Carolina proven to have a home field advantage in recent years, winning 13 of their last 17 home games. They also have an edge in the head-to-head series, covering the spread in 4 of their last 5 meetings against Miami. Ultimately, Drake May is trending in the right direction. The Miami Hurricanes are talented and balanced enough to go on the road and spring an upset, but last week's loss to Georgia Tech was so historically bad, I'm not sure if they'll be able to get off the canvas. The game was over. If Mario Cristobal calls a kneel, Miami is undefeated, and this is the game of the week between 2 undefeated Atlantic Coast Conference schools. We could easily see Miami fold if it doesn't get off to a fast start. Last week's loss was that bad. North Carolina is one of the most explosive offenses in the country with an above-average defense. On a side note, I'm not too nervous about laying the extra half point and being on the wrong side of a key number. In theory, that would make the points less valuable. Either way, it shouldn't matter. I see a path to North Carolina winning by upwards of a touchdown. Miami deserves better, especially with the athletes and talent that they have. Maybe they will figure it out at some point, but I expect the Tar Heels to punish them. This was shaping up to be a matchup of 2 undefeated teams until Mario Cristobal botched their latest contest against Georgia Tech. Nonetheless, it should still be a great contest in Chapel Hill. I like Mace to once again shine in the spotlight of a national television game. So the North Carolina Tar Heels to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The game total in this one is a bit unpredictable, and I would tread lightly here. We have a lot of variables to consider. First, we know the North Carolina offense is really good, and they could hang 40 in this game. The question is whether the Miami defense is as good as their rankings in the first half of the season. The Canes have a ton of fast guys on the defensive side of the ball, and I do think they will give Drake May his biggest test of the season. But I also expect that May will pass that test, and he will push Miami hard. Bear in mind, the Texas Aggies scored 33 against Miami at Miami, and I think the Tar Heels are every bit the offense that the Aggies are. The second consideration in this game is the Miami offense. I do not think the Miami offense is great, but they are definitely capable of moving the ball. As mentioned in the spread column, I do not trust their coaching staff to call the right plays or to put the players in a position to succeed, so there is a risk of having good drives end without touchdowns. Still, I think they can move the ball, and Carolina is not a lockdown defense. In college football, particularly in recent years, high-powered offenses tend to trump good defense. While both of these teams sport quality defenses, these are 2 of the best offenses in the country. North Carolina has scored 40 or more points in 3 of their last 4 games heading into this showdown. On the season, they have yet to score under 30 points. Prior to the Georgia Tech game, Miami had scored over 40 points in 3 straight games. Save for their 5 turnovers, it is likely the Hurricanes would have come close to that number against the Yellow Jackets as well. The quarterback play is going to be fun to watch on Saturday night. Between Tyler Van Dyke and Drake May, these are 2 guys who love to air it out. Miami is putting up an average of 39 points per game this year, while North Carolina enters at 37 points per contest. Both defenses have been great, but these big games always wind up going in favor of dynamic offenses. From a trends perspective, the over has cashed in 4 of the last 5 meetings between these 2 sides. I wouldn't be surprised if this game ends in the 30s for both teams. Expect a high-scoring affair in Carolina on Saturday night. Over the projected total is our full game total pick. NC State versus Duke. The Duke Blue Devils had last week off to lick their wounds from suffering their first loss of the season, as a 21-14 home loss to Notre Dame was the last time we saw Duke out on the football field. It was the first outright home loss for the Blue Devils in almost a calendar year, October 15, 2022, a 5-game streak that included that season-opening win over Clemson earlier in the year. This week, the rested Blue Devils host a NC State Wolfpack program that's coming off a 48-41 barn-burner win over Marshall a week ago. Games played in the 40s are not typically where the Wolfpack want to be, and so far through 2 road games this year, NC State games haven't topped a combined total of 45 points. NC State fans are hoping their defense travels again this week, looking to pull off the upset. The NC State Wolfpack are 4-2 this season after they defeated Marshall by a score of 48-41 last week. NC State trailed 24-21 at halftime, and it was only a 1-point game going into the final quarter, but NC State scored 13 straight points in the fourth for the win. The Wolfpack were outgained by a total of 419-401, and both teams turned the ball over 3 times in the game. NC State also has wins over UConn, VMI, and Virginia, while picking up losses to Notre Dame and Louisville. The NC State offense is scoring 29 points per game with 206 passing yards per game and 148.5 rushing yards per game, while going 43.2% on third downs. MJ Morris has thrown for 265 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions for the Wolfpack this year. Michael Allen has rushed for 209 yards and 3 scores, while Kevin Concepcion has caught 31 passes for 347 yards and 4 touchdowns. The NC State defense is allowing 23.5 points against per game this year. The Duke Blue Devils are 4-1 this season after they lost to Notre Dame by a score of 21-14 in their last game. Duke trailed 13-0 in the third quarter, but fought back to take the 14-13 lead before giving up the game-winning touchdown with 31 seconds left. The Blue Devils were outgained by a total of 381-323 and turned the ball over 2 times in the loss. Duke had started the season with 4 straight wins against Clemson, Lafayette, Northwestern, and UConn. The Duke offense is averaging 32.6 points per game with 206 passing yards per game and 199.4 rushing yards per game, while going 43.3% on third downs. Riley Leonard has thrown for 912 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception, while also rushing for 326 yards and 4 touchdowns for Duke this year. Jordan Waters has rushed for 303 yards and 8 scores, while Jordan Moore has caught 24 passes for 313 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Duke defense is giving up 11 points against per game this season. The NC State Wolfpack will be competitive in this one. Their only losses were against ranked squads, losing to Notre Dame and a narrow 13-10 loss to Louisville. The Wolfpack have an outstanding defense that has contained their Atlantic Coast Conference opponents. The Duke Blue Devils could be without number 1 quarterback Riley Leonard, who is dealing with injury and is questionable. If he can't play, they will be relying on freshman quarterback Henry Bollin IV. Furthermore, Duke relies on the running game heavily. They attempt to pass in less than 50% of their plays. This is ideal for NC State, who excels against the run. They are only conceding 97 rushing yards per game, good for 17th in the country. Also, I expect NC State to generate yards in the ground. They run more than pass, and one area Duke can be solved is on the ground, ranking 68th in rush defense. The Duke Blue Devils have playmakers on offense and the 4th best scoring defense, so they have many ways to win. But the loss of quarterback Riley Leonard can't be taken lightly. Henry Bollin IV has just 14 career pass attempts and is now being thrown into the fire. NC State has issues offensively, but does have a top 25 rush defense and held an undefeated Louisville team to 13 points. This could be a struggle for Duke, even with an extra week to prepare. Give me the free points. So the NC State Wolfpack to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. NC State is a lower scoring team that wins games with defense. They will run more than pass and have longer drives as a result. NC State has scored 24 or fewer points in 4 of their 6 games, including just 34 points in 2 Atlantic Coast Conference games. Duke has an outstanding defense that has allowed 21 or fewer in all 5 clashes on the season. In addition, the Blue Devils offense has a daunting challenge against a Wolfpack defense that has held its opponent to 21 or fewer points in all but 2 games. If quarterback Riley Leonard does not play, Duke could run more than usual. The under is 4-1 in the Wolfpack last 5 road games. I expect points to be at a premium. Under the projected total is our full game total pick. UCLA versus Oregon State. Number 15 Oregon State hosts number 18 UCLA in a big Pac-12 conference game on Saturday, October 14th. The Beavers are 5-1 this season with a conference record of 2-1. Oregon State's lone loss has come by the hands of Washington State by 3 points earlier in the season. Since that loss, the Beavers have won back-to-back games. The Bruins are 4-1 and 1-1 in conference play. UCLA is also coming off of a big win against Washington State in their latest outing. UCLA comes into this game with a 4-1 record overall, and their defense sure stepped up in the last game. UCLA only gave up 17 points to the Washington State Cougars, and that was enough to win by 8 points. Dante Moore had a strong game, completing 22 of his 44 passes for 290 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. UCLA on the season is averaging 31 points while their defense is giving up 12 points per game. Oregon State looks for real, and heading into this game they sit with a 5-1 record. In the last game against Cal, the defense was awful, giving up 40 points, but the good news was the offense was better, giving up 52 points. DJ Uiagalelei had quite the game, completing 19 of his 25 passes for 275 yards and 5 touchdowns. Oregon State on the season is averaging 38.5 points while their defense is giving up 20 points per game. The offense is ranked 14th in the league while defense is ranked 35th. In this game, the defense is going to need to step up and make life tough on UCLA's offense. This is going to feel like a Big Ten game rather than a fast-paced Pac-12 matchup. UCLA and Oregon State both pride themselves on a strong defense. They are both ranked inside the top 20 in rushing defense, and it will show as the defensive fronts are important parts to this roster. The difference in this game will be the familiarity with big moments at the quarterback position. UCLA will start Moore, who is a freshman and has seldom been in a nighttime environment like Oregon State. The Beavers will start Uiagalelei, who with his time at Clemson has seen a fair share of these moments. The UCLA Bruins has had issues finishing drives this season as their 63rd in scoring offense, and they were held to 7 points in their last road game against Utah. The Oregon State Beavers are a balanced team that's 14th in scoring offense and 35th in scoring defense. Oregon State has also won 7 straight home games dating back to last season. Oregon State is legit and has an underrated home field. Uiagalelei will rise to the occasion in this game, so the Oregon State Beavers to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The Bruins have been lethal on the defensive side of the ball thus far. On the other side, the Beavers have done a good job, though they've allowed 38 points to Washington State and 40 to California. The total has gone under in 4 of UCLA's previous 5 contests. The under is 6-2 in the last 8 encounters between these two teams. Running the ball is an important piece to the Oregon State and UCLA offense. Both squads will try to solidify the run game on Saturday, but their strong defensive fronts will see them stifled at the line. The clock will keep moving and possessions will be short. There will be little flow to this game on Saturday night. Both teams should struggle to move the ball on the ground, and I'm not expecting to see a high-scoring affair. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed. Subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.